All right. Hello, everyone. I think that we are live, which is very exciting. Um, I am Claire Baker, and I'm here with Rita Savasco, and we are from Rooted in Language. And we are going to be talking today a bit about reading accuracy, reading comprehension, reading fluency, and kind of the whole mess and tangled web of everything that goes along with that. And it is a bit of a tangled mess. It's a lot there.
But this is not our class on reading accuracy and comprehension. So we're just giving you a little bit of a sense of what are we talking about when we talk about reading accuracy and comprehension.
Absolutely, right? Yes. And we do teach a class, which is kind of, as Rita said, what we're sort of alluding to and going to be talking sort of around it from a big picture perspective. And our class is called Laying a Path, Reading Accuracy and Comprehension. And it is part of our Laying a Path class series. I believe there are 5 different classes that kind of fall under that series. And it's a really deep dive into what reading accuracy is, what fluency is, what comprehension is, how we achieve it across all the areas of language, and lots of strategies for how you as an educator teach it to your students, your children. So a lot of this sort of empowering the educator and really giving you all the strategies and insights and knowledge that we can possibly give you over the course of a multi-hour class. So that's what we're going to kind of be talking a little bit about today. And that class is available on our website. It's available all the time. It is a pre-recorded class if you're interested in it. And part of the reason we're talking about it today is because we have some upcoming live Q&As, or a upcoming live Q&A that goes along with that class. So if you're involved in the Reading Accuracy and Comprehension course and you have some questions, inevitably, because everyone does, because it's very complicated, right? That's why we have our Q&A session. So that will be coming up soon. For this time of year, it's going to be in mid-February, on the 19th. So if you are involved or interested in that class, you also get that Q&A session as well.
Right. So Claire said we have a number of classes, and we are always, I'm a speech and language therapist, and we work with children who struggle in reading and writing and in language arts in general. And so when we talk about reading accuracy and comprehension, what I want you to understand is that language is very complex. We have a graphic free download on our website at rootedinlanguage.com of our language tree that gives you a sense of this complexity of language and how language skills are interwoven together. So we have our oral language system, which involves speaking and listening. So we have our expressive skills in speaking and our comprehension skills in listening comprehension. And then we also have reading and writing. So we have our expressive skills in writing, and then also our comprehension skills of what we read. So one of the things I want you to get a sense of is that when we talk about reading comprehension, we're not talking about overall language comprehension. So a student may be very good at listening to stories. Their comprehension could be at grade level, but their reading comprehension, what they can comprehend when they read, might be below grade level. And it's very important that we keep those two ideas distinct in our mind. So what we are talking about here is reading comprehension and all that builds into reading comprehension, which Claire is going to explain in a minute. And so when we say, well, reading comprehension is low, so we just listen to books instead, that's both okay and not okay. So if I'm learning grade level material, listening to that material to keep me at grade level is great. But if I'm working on reading comprehension, then listening to literature is very good for a lot of things, many other skills, but it's not building into my reading comprehension. It takes very specific strategies and skills to work on reading comprehension. And what we do in all of our classes is we teach you both kind of this micro and macro level, where we work on skills, individual skills, and we teach a class on those skills on a topic. So the topic in this case is reading accuracy, fluency, which we didn't fit in the title, and comprehension, those three things. But then we also have to pull back and work on the skills woven together, what we call consolidating the skills, working on them in this interwoven, comprehensive level, so that we are building up everything, all of the language system. Not only does reading comprehension build into our overall language system, but our language system builds into our reading comprehension as its own side of that. So if you can imagine that we designed in our image a tree that has 4 trunks. One trunk is speaking, one trunk is listening, one trunk is reading, one trunk is writing. But they all share the same roots and they all grow the same canopy. So Claire, why don't you help differentiate these 3 areas when we talk about reading comprehension that involve really accuracy, fluency, and what we think of as comprehension?
Yeah, especially because I feel like those terms, can get thrown around a lot, and they're often very academic jargon kind of terms, and you might read them in a report, in a diagnosis, and in anything kind of falling under this very, very academic language, right? Around this, like, comprehension has a certain, scale, or accuracy has a certain scale, fluency has a certain scale. So what those terms actually mean in sort of more of a layperson's way of seeing it, and what it sort of physically manifests as, right, in our reading. So accuracy, to start with, is really our ability to decode. So when we think about reading, the kind of primary way we read is to literally understand what sort of each letter and the sound it makes and how that works as a word, to actually move through the language in a very almost clinical kind of way, right? We're actually decoding the code of language. We're accessing it directly. So we have to be able to do that accurately, right? To see a letter and understand the sound that goes with it, to see a set of letters and how they might work together, right? Like TH and SH or something like that, like a pair of letters or a pair of vowels that work together. And then to see it as a whole word, right? And how, as we move from the beginning to the end of the word, right, accurately tracking along each sound and how then that works as a complete word. So being able to decode, right, accurately is a part of accuracy. So that's kind of that first part. The second part of it is having word recognition, right? To be able to see just in general, right, this is a word, this is a unit of meaning. It holds something as itself, right, when we see a word, and to move from word to word to word to word, right? So accuracy is, I do tend to think of it more as, it's a very clinical thing, right? It's kind of the start at the beginning, move through from letter to letter, from word to word, and understanding each chunk, right? And if we don't, you can kind of imagine the opposite. If we don't do that accurately, if we misread what the letter is or the sound that goes with that letter, if we're guessing even, right, something you might frequently see students do, if they're guessing at what the letter is or the order of letters, or even the whole word, right, or you see that you start out accurately and then you guess the rest of the word, you can see how quickly it can start to fall apart, right? Because this decoding and word recognition piece starts becoming inaccurate.
And if I can just interject here. So if I'm spending too much cognitive energy on this process of decoding, too much guessing on what words look like and what I think they are, right? That's a skill. That's what I refer to as a skill. That's what we call reading accuracy. That will interfere with comprehension because I'm working too hard to be tapping into this higher level thinking skills. I'm too down in the weeds. Like as Claire said, I'm just really working on the process too much to get the message, to get the comprehension of the message. And just as an aside, if this is a big issue for your student, we address this in our phonics and spelling class. We address it in our word study class, where we really talk about recognizing word parts and the meaning associated with it. But we take that a little further in this class, this reading accuracy and comprehension class. Okay.
Yeah.
Next.
Yeah. No, each of these, it's a good point to make that we work on them, how they relate to each other, right? How accuracy relates to comprehension, but they're also individual. Like you said, it's working on skills and also consolidating skills. So we do have to work on the skill of accurate decoding, accurate reading. So then the next piece is fluency. And fluency is really accuracy plus speed. So we cannot become, if you think about being like a fluent speaker of a language or a fluent reader of something, it means you're moving very quickly through something, right? We tend to think of that, especially I feel like with language speaking, like learning a foreign language, you tend to think of fluent speakers, right? They move very easily, very fluidly, right, through the language.
Think of that flow without a lot of stops and starts, right?
Right. And the same concept applies to our reading, right? If you're a fluent reader, yeah, not a lot of stopping. And, we all do make mistakes in our reading from time to time, but also the ability to catch them, to go back to keep moving through it. But accuracy is still a piece, which is important to remember, that just because I'm moving quickly through something doesn't mean I abandon accuracy. Right? It is still a piece. We have to be able to move quickly, but also move correctly through something to be fluent. And both of those pieces, both accuracy and fluency, build into, as Rita said, they build directly into comprehension. Right? As you can imagine, if you're reading something inaccurately, you're not going to understand what it's talking about. If you're reading something disfluently, is that the word I want? Disfluently.
Or too slowly.
Yeah, too slowly, or you get to a certain part and have to stop and start over again and stop and start over, right? You're not going to follow from one end of the concept to the other. You're not going to make it through the whole sentence or the whole paragraph or whatever it might be that you're reading. And you can lose the whole topic that you might be reading about, right? So breakdowns in accuracy and or in fluency can lead to breakdowns in comprehension. And there are also a couple other pieces that build into comprehension. You get things like having vocabulary knowledge, right? If you don't know the words that you're reading, it makes it much harder to understand the whole idea, right? Having background knowledge on the topic that you're reading about, right? If it's a totally new area, some scientific concept, right, that you've never heard of before, it's going to be much, much harder to understand what you're reading than if you come with some of that previous knowledge, or you can relate it to other concepts, right? Our ability to kind of network our own knowledge, right, comes a lot from background knowledge. Our ability to attend to a task, right, just to stay focused, leads to understanding. And kind of the final piece is what we call our working memory. So kind of our ability to hold almost in the front, the workspace of your brain, what you started or where you were when you started the sentence by the time you get to the end of it, to hold on to the whole idea, the whole concept, the whole topic, right? To remember who you're reading about, right? If it's a character or something like that, to have it all kind of in that front area of your brain so that it stays relevant, right? And you know about it as you're moving through what you're reading.
And again, it can be hard to separate all of this out. It's part of what we help you try to do in our course. Because if I'm reading too slowly, my working memory has to work so much harder. My attention will stray, right? I didn't get enough of the information to actually capture my interest in a story, and therefore I'm not comprehending very well. And I look like I have poor attention when really it could actually be fluency, right? So these three things that Claire has outlined for us are what we need to look at. And there can be breakdown at any level. So when we see that accuracy is really good and fluency is just fine, but comprehension is still poor, Then we may need to look at the deeper language system and say, well, what's going on here? What is the vocabulary level like? What are there other attention issues? Do we have some working memory issues? Do we have some what we call syntax issues in the language system, which is really understanding these more complex grammatical structures that show up in reading? And then how can we get some skills to help us monitor our own comprehension as we go along, right? And so we talk about comprehension monitoring in this class, and everything is woven. We don't separate it out from writing. We never separate reading from writing, because our ability to engage with text has to happen in a lot of ways. We can engage with text by reading it. We can engage with text by discussing it. We can engage with text by taking notes on it or writing about it. So it's this engagement with text that we also want to work with. And that engagement, those strategies with text, are a lot of what we go over in this reading and accuracy and comprehension class. So we give advanced strategies for helping kids accurately read, especially multisyllabic words. Those are some of the strategies we'll talk about. And we also talk a lot about this surface reading versus deep reading. Surface engagement versus deep engagement, right? Surface learning versus deep learning. But because this class is geared for the educator, we also talk about surface teaching versus deep teaching. And how do we really build into that? And again, one of the ways we build into it is by helping you see how everything weaves, how we work on skills, but then we work on the consolidation of skills, and everything weaves through the entire language system, listening, speaking, reading, writing, in order to build up reading comprehension skills. And it's complicated, and we try to give you good student examples. And as Claire said, we make ourselves available for Q&A, so we can answer some specific questions for what you are seeing for your own children's needs.
Yeah, because I mean, the reality of reading comprehension is that it's not simple, and that the difficulties or the sort of problems behind, what you see manifested as maybe not understanding what you're reading, or your student doesn't understand what they're reading, is multitudinous. There's lots of stuff there. It's complicated. And, the more you understand how the system works, the better you're able to directly teach to, where some of those gaps might be, to support the places that are strong, right, already, and to help build those up even further, and to help bring up the places where there might be weakness, so that they can start to be on level with the strengths as well, right? So the whole system becomes, stronger and fuller.
Right.
Because of that.
And if you'd like to do a little reading and see a little bit about what we're about, we have a book called Trees in the Forest, Growing Readers and Writers Through Deep Comprehension. And we have some strategies in there that also talk about what the reader brings to the text. And understanding not just the words that are written, but the intention of what's written. What are some of the implied messages within text? And that can be tricky for kids. And that's one of the things that we also work on. So we have the class, and we have our Trees in the Forest book. We also have a really nice designed activity called Explore a Story, where we really help kids use their writing and conversation skills and art skills and drawing skills to help them really showcase what they're understanding about a story. And these are all important strategies that really build into using this deeper understanding of reading, accuracy, fluency, and comprehension.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're interested in any of those, there will be links in the description So feel free to check out all of them, and the class is definitely our Laying a Path Reading Accuracy and Comprehension class is definitely the sort of deepest dive into strategy and how to teach your students, how to help with these different areas of reading and writing comprehension that goes along with it. And we have Q&As coming up, and they're dotted throughout the year. Like I said, the one that's coming up most relevant right now is on February 19th, but they are spread out throughout the year as well. So they will continue to be upcoming.
Right. And as Claire said, they're all online, they're recordings. You can hold on to the recording, you watch it all the way through, show up for a Q&A, decide what level your child, what area your student needs the most work on, and then you can have those recordings available to you to go back and watch and start implementing the strategies, and then come back and listen again when you understand more about what's going on. Sometimes as we work with kids, they begin to reveal these deeper issues that we may not have seen up front until we really start working with them. And we start cleaning up some of the more obvious weaknesses, then we might start to see some of the deeper issues. So our materials are good, and the teaching is sound and based in some of the research behind how to build into deep learning strategies. So it's good for all learners, those who struggle, those who are average, those who are above average. So all ages and stages, we like to say. Apply this at every level. Okay.
Yeah. Awesome. So, we hope to see you in the Q&As and in our classes. So
yes, thanks for joining us today. Bye-bye.